10 minutes past 6 o'clock now. This morning, corporations and labor unions have the ability to throw mega dollars into political campaigns. For decades, they were restricted, but yesterday the U.S. Supreme Court voted 5-4 to lift limitations on what they can donate. To understand the impact on you, the voter, we are joined by Dr. Grant Neely from the University of Dayton. I want to thank you this morning, sir, for being with us.
Sure.
Wow, this is huge. And I think what worries me anyway is that people will interpret this as if you throw a lot of money at it, then you're going to win. You can pretty much dictate politics and the outcome of an election, and the little guy loses. What's your interpretation?
Well, it really complicates campaign finance and funding for elections. Barack Obama was kind of a historic election because he really won with a lot of money generated from small private donations. And this changes the landscape. It's something we're pretty used to seeing in Ohio. If you think back to our recent casino election issue, you saw a ton of fundraising and advertising directly by the corporations that were going to be affected. So we could expect to see that level of interest in direct advertising paid for by corporations and unions now in federal elections.
Do you think it will dampen the spirits of voters? I mean, already we see some apathy issues, but, I mean, do you get to the point now voters are going to think, well, you can just buy an election and my vote doesn't really count?
Well, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is you have campaigns that are run by candidates who are multimillionaires. If you think about Bloomberg or Corzine, these guys are able to pump a lot of their own money into an election. Now you have the ability of corporations and unions maybe to counter those effects. So you might have a situation where you have a really rich, wealthy candidate and nobody to compete against that person. Now you at least have a chance for corporations and unions to step in and fill that void and run ads against somebody who's maybe funding everything out of their own pocket.
Are they likely, though, to pick up a name that nobody knows type person?
Well, I think the corporation and unions are going to be pretty smart, and they're going to pick somebody they think's got a chance to win, and somebody that they think is important enough that's going to make a difference for their business in the long run.
What about lobbying? You know, already we know that's very rampant in our country. Do you see it going kind of skyrocketing now because they know that there are more dollars available?
Well, this gives them a different mechanism. Lobbying is talking to people who are already in office. This is actually a type of a surrogate for political parties. Now you've got corporations and unions that can step in and fund campaign advertising. They can't coordinate it still with candidates, but they can fund ads that will support a candidate or work for the defeat of a candidate.
You mentioned something interesting to me earlier, just quickly. You said we're at a time when people don't have a lot of faith in big corporations and labor unions. And so how does that kind of come into play here?
Well, I think that's a real question as to who's going to make the decision within a corporation or a union as to what candidate we support or what candidate we attack. And you have to wonder if they're going to really have enough of an interest to get involved in politics that they're going to be able to convince their stakeholders or their union members that this is important that we do.
All right. We'll see what pans out. Thank you so much, Dr. Neely. And I'm sure the Today Show will be taking up this very topic in just an hour from now.